The door lock clicked open. That tiny metallic snap. That was the only warning I got. My husband Daniel didn't even look at me. He just gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white, staring into the storm as the windshield wipers fought a losing battle. The rhythmic thwack, thwack, thwack of the rubber on the glass was the only sound for a full 10 seconds. It was a failing sound, a sound of something giving up. "Get out, Jessica," he said. His voice was calm. That was always the worst part. It was the voice he used when he was correcting a junior analyst, the voice of absolute board control. It was the voice that had, over 3 years, systematically dismantled me. I just looked at him. I played the part I had perfected, the part he had cast me in. "What?" "Get out. Daniel, we're 50 miles from home. It's pouring." I made sure to let a tremor enter my voice. It wasn't hard. The air in the car was thick with his particular brand of cold, sterile rage. "I know," he said, and for the first time he turned. His eyes were cold, almost bored. There was no passion in them, just dismissal. This was not a crime of passion. It was an execution, a lesson. He was, after all, always teaching me lessons. "You've been disrespectful, Jessica." He said it like a fact, like he was reading a line item from a balance sheet. "You questioned me. In front of Taylor. You embarrassed me. I just asked if you'd be home for dinner," I whispered. A lie, of course. I had done exactly what I'd planned. I'd accidentally found a text. I had hysterically confronted him. I had pushed him, deliberately, knowing his pathological arrogance couldn't tolerate being questioned. I knew he would need to punish me to reestablish his control. "You need to learn that actions have consequences," he said, the words slipping out of him with a smug, pedagogical certainty. "This is your lesson." He leaned across my body, his arm, hard and unforgiving in his expensive suit, pressed against my chest, pinning me to the seat as he shoved the passenger door open. The wind and the rain didn't just enter the car. They exploded into it, a wall of noise and ice and water that stole my breath. The car, which had been a warm, silent prison, suddenly became a vacuum. "Get out!" This time he yelled. The mask of control slipped, just for a second, revealing the ugly, frantic rage beneath. The rage of a man who needs to be the smartest person in the room and who just realized, on some subconscious level, that he might not be. I didn't move. I just stared at him. "Daniel, please don't do this," I was begging. But my voice was clear. It was level. I wasn't begging for him. I was begging for the microphone. He didn't shove me. He didn't have to. He just unbuckled my seatbelt with a flick of his thumb and put his hand on my shoulder. He was waiting, daring me to defy him. So I played the final beat. I let a sob escape. I stumbled out of the car, my designer heels sinking instantly into the mud on the shoulder of the highway. The second I was clear, he leaned over, his face still a mask of cold fury. "You want to be independent? Fine, be independent." He reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet, and extracted a single bill. He threw it. A wet, crumpled $20 bill that the wind immediately plastered against my leg before it fell into a puddle. He left me there. He didn't look back. The passenger door slammed shut, the sound swallowed by the storm. The red taillights of the Mercedes cut through the rain, accelerating, disappearing around a curve. And then silence. Not silence. The roar of the rain, the howl of the wind, the distant rush of a truck passing on the other side of the highway, sending a tidal wave of icy spray over me. 50 miles from home, no wallet, just the clothes on my back and a $20 bill dissolving in the mud. This was his apparent victory. The final cruel masterstroke from a man who believed he was in total control. A man who had spent 3 years gaslighting me until the Wharton MBA questioned her own sanity. A man who had convinced me that the competent, sharp woman I had been was an illusion. And this trembling, naive wife was the reality. He was in that moment gloating. I could picture him in the car, a small, satisfied smile on his face. He'd be thinking, she'll be cold, terrified, she'll be hysterical. He was probably already preparing his speech for when I inevitably called him, begging him to come back. He would let it ring. He would let me suffer. He had finally, irrevocably, put his helpless wife in her place. He was wrong. This was the overlooked detail. I stood in the rain, perfectly still. I didn't cry. I didn't shiver. I just stood there, letting the water wash the last 3 years of filth off of me. I let him get far enough away that his taillights were just a memory. Then, I reached into the deep pocket of my raincoat. The one he'd bought me. The one he thought was just a fashion statement. I pulled my phone from my pocket. It was in a black, waterproof, shockproof case. The second phone he knew nothing about. My fingers were cold, but they were steady. I tapped the screen. A red light at the top of the display blinked and then went out. I tapped, "Stop recording." The audio file, 8 minutes of crystal clear, high-fidelity cruelty, of criminal abandonment, was already uploading to a secure server. The server Valentina had set up for me. The server the U.S. Attorney's Office would soon be accessing. He thought he was teaching me a lesson. The reality? This lesson was exactly what I wanted to happen. Daniel didn't just abandon his wife on the side of a highway. He had just personally, willingly, and arrogantly recorded the final, crucial piece of evidence my lawyers, a forensic accountant, and the SEC had been waiting 8 months for. The piece that proved the psychological abuse. The piece that established a pattern of coercion. The piece that would, in a court of law, vaporize his calm, rational man of finance narrative. His lesson wasn't a punishment. It was the trigger for my true master plan. I opened my texts. I sent a one-word message to a single encrypted contact. Go. I didn't wait long. Maybe 30 seconds. A moment later, headlights appeared. Not the retreating red of Daniel's Mercedes, but the advancing, brilliant white LEDs of a black SUV. It pulled up silently, the engine a low, powerful rumble that the storm couldn't drown. The passenger door opened. Jessica, my brother Mark, stepped out. He wasn't wearing a bodyguard suit. He was wearing jeans and a tactical jacket. He was a private investigator, and he looked like he was ready to go to war. He held a heavy blanket and a thermos. He did it, I said. My voice didn't shake. Mark, I said, my voice finally my own. He did it. He's gone. Execute. Mark just nodded. He wrapped the blanket around my shoulders. The team's moving. Valentina got the audio. Rebecca's prepping the injunction. He handed me the thermos. Hot tea, unsweetened, just how I liked it. I got into the warm, dry car. As Mark pulled back onto the highway, heading in the opposite direction of Daniel, I looked back at the muddy, rain-swept patch of ground where I had been left. He overlooked everything. It's the classic flaw of the pathological narcissist. Daniel's world was built on the assumption of his own superiority. He needed to be the smartest person in the room, which is why he was so drawn to me in the first place. And it's why he was so driven to dismantle me. A woman with a Wharton MBA. He couldn't just coexist with that. He had to own it. He had to break it. He had to prove to himself that my intellect was nothing compared to his. For 3 years, his gaslighting was a masterpiece, a systematic, meticulous campaign to dismantle my core identity. He isolated me, turning my own sharp mind against itself until it became a prison of self-doubt. He convinced me that the competent professional who once managed a $50 million portfolio was the illusion, and the naive, paranoid, hysterical woman he abused was the reality. He genuinely believed it. He genuinely believed he was abusing a naive wife, not a dormant financial expert. He overlooked the Wharton MBA. He overlooked my brother. And he overlooked the $4.5 million he stole from his clients. 8 months earlier, I wasn't a hunter. I was just lost. The inciting incident, the real one, wasn't the abandonment. That was just the climax of his arrogance. The real beginning was a Tuesday, 2:14 a.m. I was in his office. The one he called his sanctum. A steel and mahogany prison of his own making. I wasn't supposed to be in there. He'd made that very clear. It was where genius happened. But I wasn't looking for genius. I was looking for proof of an affair. It's almost pathetic, isn't it? After months of being gaslit, told I was paranoid, told I was crazy for thinking he was cheating. I was just a wife, desperate to prove that the knot in my stomach wasn't insanity. I just wanted a name, a face, something concrete to prove I wasn't imagining the distance, the late nights, the smell of unfamiliar perfume on his shirts. I was looking for infidelity. I wasn't looking for embezzlement. I had his laptop open. He'd changed the password, of course. But he was arrogant. He used the same password for everything. His college mascot and the year he conquered Wall Street. Predictable. I was scrolling through credit card statements, looking for hotel rooms, jewelry, dinners I wasn't at. And then I saw it. It wasn't a charge at a 5-star restaurant. It was a wire transfer. A simple, clean transfer of $250,000 to an LLC I didn't recognize. My blood didn't run cold. It did the opposite. It felt like a switch had been thrown. A machine, dormant for 3 years, suddenly hummed to life. My professional instincts, the ones he had tried so hard to bury, they just cut straight through the fog. I didn't recognize the LLC, so I searched it. It was a shell corporation, registered in Delaware. The registered agent was a generic legal service, but the filing date was 6 months ago. I kept digging. I found the bank that held the account. I couldn't get in, obviously. Not yet. But I could see the other transfers. I cross-referenced the dates with his hedge fund's quarterly reports. The public ones. He was moving client money. It wasn't sophisticated. That's the part that, it still astounds me. He thought he was a genius, a master of finance. But this was sloppy. It was arrogant. It was a simple, clear-cut shell game. He was siphoning funds from his clients' portfolios, moving them to Shell Corp A, then to Shell Corp B, then using that to inflate the value of a worthless asset, which he then sold back to other clients at a premium. He wasn't just a cheater, he was a common criminal. He had embezzled $4.5 million. I sat back in his chair. The leather was cold. For 3 years he told me I was crazy, paranoid, hysterical. He had gaslit me into believing my own professional judgment was a liability. He had convinced me I couldn't even manage a grocery list, let alone a $50 million portfolio. But this was sloppy. This was traceable. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't married to a genius. I was married to a fraud. That was the discovery. And it was catastrophic. It meant our entire life. The glossy, cold affluence. The glass-walled mansion that felt like a prison. The galas. The untouchable reputation. It was all a lie. His success was a fraud. And my name? My name, Jessica, the Wharton MBA, was attached to his. The fallout was immediate. It wasn't loud. It was a silent collapse of my reality, and in its place, the birth of a cold, terrifying clarity. He wasn't just abusing me. He was a liability. And he knew it. He knew that I, of all people, had the training to see what he'd done. That's why he had to break me. That's why he had to dismantle my identity. It wasn't just for his ego. It was for his protection. I realized that at some point, when he felt I was either too close to the truth or no longer a useful shield, he would need to dispose of me. That night, sitting in his office, I understood. Conventional justice was never an option. Daniel had spent 3 years ensuring it. First, the money. He held complete and total financial control. He had systematically hidden all our marital assets, cut me off from my own money, and tied everything up in trusts I couldn't touch. A conventional divorce would be my financial ruin. I would walk away with nothing. Second, the narrative. He had perfected the narrative of my instability. He had gaslit me so thoroughly that I knew exactly how he would paint me in court. A hysterical, gold-digging, and unstable wife. He would be the calm, rational man of finance. And I would be the crazy one. I couldn't just divorce him. He would crush me, but I could report him. A domestic squabble? He'd win that. He'd charm the judge. He'd bury me in legal fees. But a federal one? That was different. That was the moment I decided vengeance was the only path. It wasn't just an emotional decision. It was a strategic one. It was the realization that to get justice for myself, I had to get justice for his clients first. This wasn't going to be a divorce. It was going to be a project. I wasn't a woman scorned. I was a portfolio manager. And this was the most important project of my life. The 8-month plan wasn't just to win a divorce. It was to build an irrefutable federal case that would vaporize his wealth, his reputation, and his freedom. All before he ever had the chance to call me crazy in court. I shut down the laptop. I wiped my tracks. I went back to our cold, sterile bedroom. He came home hours later, smelling of wine and Taylor. He didn't even look at me. I pretended to be asleep. The next morning, I began to revert to my professional self. The old Jessica. The one who could see patterns others missed. The meticulous, patient, and calculating one. I made 2 calls. The first was from a burner phone I bought with cash at a bodega. I called my brother. "Mark," I said. "Jess, what's wrong? Why are you on this number?" I kept my voice low. "I'm okay, but I need you. Not as my brother. As a PI, I told him everything. The gaslighting, the affair, and then the embezzlement." He was silent. The silence of a professional absorbing a client's problem. "What do you need?" he finally said. I need a fortress, I said. I need cameras, everywhere. Audio, in his car. In his office. Not in the house, not yet. I need trackers. I need to know where he is, who he's with, and what he's saying. I need a new laptop, military-grade encryption. And I need a new phone. The works. Jess, that's a full surveillance package. That's expensive. I know. But Mark, he's not just a cheater. He's a criminal. And I'm attached to him. I'm in danger. I'll be there in 3 hours, he said. We'll build your fortress. The second call was harder. It was to Valentina. Valentina and I had come up together. We were the only 2 women in our analyst class at J.P. Morgan. She'd gone into forensic accounting. She was meticulous, pitiless. She was the best. We hadn't spoken in 2 years. Not since Daniel had convinced me my old colleagues were a bad influence. Another part of his isolation campaign. I called her from my new, clean laptop, an encrypted video call. She picked up. Her face was sharp, professional. She looked surprised to see me. Jessica, she said. No warmth. Just curiosity. It's been a long time. Val, I said. I know, and I'm sorry. I've been a fool. But I'm not calling for a reunion. I'm calling because I need to hire you. I have a file for you. I sent her my initial findings. The shell cores. The transfer dates. I watched her read. I saw her professional instincts light up. The subtle widening of her eyes. The way she started typing. Not even talking to me, just working. Jess, she said, finally looking up from her screen. This is sloppy. I know, I said. He's a hedge fund manager? This is amateur, arrogant. I know. Can you find it all? Valentina smiled. It was not a kind smile. Find it all? Jessica? I'm going to find the original dollar bill he started this with. I'm going to find out what he ate for breakfast when he filed the paperwork. Give me a month. Good, I said. I need you to build the financial case. Mark is building the surveillance. I need a fortress, a digital one. Consider it built, she said. And Jess, welcome back. I closed the laptop. The team was assembled. Mark installed the cameras. Valentina started digging, and I couldn't go to the police. Not yet. I was a gaslit wife. He was a pillar of the community. My word against his? I'd be laughed out of the building. No, I needed a fortress. I needed an irrefutable case. So I built one, and I went back to being the perfect, subdued, naive wife. I played the part of the traumatized wife, while internally I became a hunter, auditing his entire life. The next 8 months, they were a masterclass in patience. Every day I smiled. I made his coffee. I let him gaslight me. I let him criticize me. I let him teach me his lessons. And every night, I put on my headphones, reviewed Mark's surveillance logs, and cross-referenced Daniel's movements with Valentina's financial data. I wasn't a wife. I was a professional. And I was building a case that would vaporize him. All I needed was for him to make one final arrogant mistake, one last lesson, and tonight. He had finally delivered it, so the trap was set. The final piece of evidence, the audio of my own abandonment, was uploading to the cloud. My husband, Daniel, was driving away, gloating, absolutely certain he had finally broken his naive, hysterical wife. He thought he was teaching me a lesson. He had no idea his lesson was the trigger for an 8-month-long project, a meticulous plan I'd built with the precision of a portfolio manager. He had forgotten who I was before he dismantled me. He forgot the Wharton MBA. He didn't know that 8 months ago I hadn't found proof of an affair. I'd found proof of his $4.5 million embezzlement, a sloppy, arrogant fraud. That discovery was the real beginning. It was the moment I realized conventional justice was a fantasy. He'd spent years building his crazy wife narrative, ensuring any divorce proceeding would be my word against his. He'd be the calm man of finance. I'd be the unhinged gold digger. He'd protected himself from me. So I built a better fortress. I brought in my brother, Mark, a PI, to handle surveillance. I brought in Valentina, a forensic accountant, to build the federal case. And I played my part. I became the subdued, traumatized wife, all while my team was auditing his life. The abandonment wasn't a defeat. It was the keystone. It was the documented criminal cruelty I needed to vaporize his reputation before he ever set foot in a courtroom. But a plan like this, it's a machine. And in the final months, that machine started to develop a terrifying momentum. The trap wasn't just waiting for him to fall into it. It was closing. And I was running out of time. The next 8 hours were a blur of cold, methodical execution. But the seeds for that night were planted 2 months earlier, the night the clock truly started ticking. The call came in at 3:17 a.m. Valentina. She never called that late unless it was critical. Her face appeared on my encrypted laptop. She looked tired, but her eyes were electric. She didn't bother with hello. "He's liquidating," she said. The words hit me like ice. What? He's liquidating. Cashing out. Moving assets from the client accounts he's been skimming. It's not a panic move, Jessica. It's organized. He's been planning this. I sat up in the guest room, the bed I'd been sleeping in for months under the guise of insomnia. Where is it going? Valentina shook her head, her expression grim. That's the part you're not going to like. He's not just moving the stolen money. He's moving everything. Marital assets, personal accounts, everything he can touch. He's wiring it to an offshore account, a new one. In the Caymans. I waited. I knew there was more. And Jessica? It's a single signature account. It doesn't have your name on it. It can't have your name on it. There it was. He's planning to run, I said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Valentina said. And soon. Within the next 2 or 3 months, tops. But that's not the worst part. The worst part, she continued, her voice low and angry, is what he's leaving behind. He's structuring the original hedge fund to fail. He's leaving all the debt, all the toxic assets in the primary entity, the one your name is still attached to. When this blows up, he'll be in the Caymans, and you'll be the one holding the bag. You'll be the one facing the clients. You'll be the one the SEC prosecutes. I closed my eyes. Of course. It wasn't enough to just leave me. It wasn't enough to just steal from his clients. He had to destroy me. It was the final perfect act of his pathology. He would dispose of me, and in the process make me the scapegoat for his own crimes. He would be the victim, the brilliant man whose unstable wife had ruined him. I remembered my realization from all those months ago, that he would, at some point, need to dispose of me to protect himself. This was it. He's not just abusing me, I said, my voice flat. He's planning to dispose of me. Jess, what do we do? We can go to the feds now. We have enough. No, my voice was sharp. No, not yet. If we go now, he'll slip away. He'll hear the whispers, and he'll be on a plane before the ink is dry on the warrant. He'll paint me as a scorned wife. He'll claim I'm fabricating it. He'll tie this up in court for years from his beach house. He needs to be here, I continued, the plan forming, hardening in my mind. He needs to be here, in the country when the hammer falls. We need to freeze everything, all at once, so he has nowhere to run. And to do that, I need an emergency injunction. Valentina looked confused. An injunction? A civil action? Jess, this is a federal case. I know, but a federal asset freeze takes time. Time he'll use to run. But a civil injunction, a TRO, based on a domestic issue, a judge can grant that in an hour. If the circumstances are extreme enough, it's the fastest way to freeze his personal assets, the ones he's using to run. We freeze those, and we buy ourselves the time for the real case to unseal. But what domestic issue? Val asked. He's been abusing you for years, but it's all psychological. How do you prove that in an emergency hearing? I looked at the camera, at my own reflection in the dark screen, the naive wife, the hysterical victim. He's been planning to dispose of me, I said, my voice a whisper. But he needed one last act of supreme cruelty to justify it to himself. He needed me to be the crazy wife who drove him to it. He needs a reason. So I'm going to give him one. Val, I need you to track the liquidation. Every dollar. Mark, I need him wired. I need to know what he's planning. This trip he's been talking about. The one to the client conference in Seattle. I think that's his opening. He's going to use that trip to break me, to create the crazy wife narrative he needs. And I'm going to let him. I'm going to make him. I'm going to need a lawyer, Val. The best divorce attorney in the city. Someone who can move like a shark. Someone who can file an injunction at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. I know someone, Val said. Rebecca Stein. She eats men like Daniel for breakfast. Good, I said. Set the meeting. The clock is ticking. Let's get to work. We're here, Mark said. He'd pulled up to the service entrance of a high-end hotel. The kind Daniel loved. The kind with marble floors and obsequious staff. Okay, I said. I took a deep breath. I looked at myself in the vanity mirror. My hair was plastered to my head. My makeup, which I'd applied meticulously hours earlier, was now a perfect, tragic mess. My eyes were red. I looked broken. "Showtime," I whispered. "Jess, are you sure about this?" Mark's voice was tight. He still had his hand on the steering wheel. "I can just take you home. We can call Rebecca. We have the audio." "No," I said. "We need more than the audio. We need a paper trail. We need independent witnesses. We need a record. His entire defense will be that I'm unstable. I need a third party, an official source, to document what just happened." He taught me how to lie, Mark. I just learned to do it better. The traumatized wife is my alibi. I opened the car door. I didn't get out. I fell out. I stumbled onto the pavement of the hotel's covered entrance, the blanket Mark had given me pooling around my feet. "Help!" I screamed. I made sure my voice cracked. "Please, somebody help me!" A night manager and a security guard came running. They saw me, soaked, shivering, hysterical. Ma'am, are you okay? What happened?" "My husband," I sobbed, clinging to the night manager's arm. "My husband, he threw me out of the car, on the highway. He left me. He took my wallet, my phone. Oh my God, he left me." Mark ran up, playing the part of the concerned brother perfectly. "Jessica, oh my God. I've been looking everywhere for you. Your phone's been going to voicemail." I collapsed into him. "Mark, he left me. He just left me in the rain." The manager was pale. "Sir, ma'am, please come inside. Let's get you warm. Security, call the police. We have a situation." And scene. They gave us a suite. Comped, of course. The manager, a kind woman named Sarah, was horrified. She brought me tea and a thick robe. 2 police officers arrived about 20 minutes later. They were gentle, concerned. I gave them the performance of a lifetime. I sat on the couch, wrapped in the hotel's robe. I cried. I shook. I told them everything. We had an argument," I stammered, twisting a tissue in my hands. "He's been under so much stress. He has a mistress. I let that land. I let them absorb the cliché. I confronted him tonight. In the car, he just snapped. He started yelling at me, calling me disrespectful, ungrateful. He said he was going to teach me a lesson." The female officer's face hardened. I knew I had her. And then he pulled over. On the highway, he yelled at me to get out. He threw a $20 bill at me and he just drove away. He left me, officer, 50 miles from home, in this storm. The male officer was writing everything down. "And your brother found you?" I don't know," I lied, looking at Mark. I must have blacked out. I was so cold. I remember. I must have had my phone, the one he doesn't know about. I think I called Mark. I don't remember. Mark stepped in. "She called me, officer. I'm her emergency contact." The call. I could barely hear her. Just crying. I tracked her phone's GPS. I found her on the side of Route 5. She was in shock. I brought her here. It was the closest, safest place. The officer nodded. "Mr. Hale," Mark said. "Mark Hale. Mr. Hale, you did the right thing." "Ma'am," she said, turning back to me, "your husband. His name is Daniel?" I nodded. "Daniel Asher." The officers shared a look. They knew the name. The hedge fund manager. The pillar of the community. "Okay, ma'am," the officer said, her voice now firm, professional. "What you're describing, leaving you on the side of a highway, 50 miles from home, in this storm, taking your wallet, that's not just a domestic dispute. That's criminal abandonment. It's reckless endangerment. Checkmate. Do you want to press charges, ma'am?" I hesitated. Perfect beat. I looked down. I don't know. I'm scared. He controls everything. The money. The house. If I do this, he'll destroy me. The female officer's eyes softened. "I understand. But we are, at minimum, filing an incident report. What he did is on the record." "Here." She handed me a small card with a case number on it. "This is your incident report number. We're going to put a bolo out for his vehicle just to have a chat with him." "Thank you, officer," I whispered. "Thank you." They left. The hotel manager assured me the suite was mine for as long as I needed. The moment the door clicked shut, I stood up. I walked to the window, staring out at the storm, which was finally starting to die down. I held up the small white card. "A paper trail," I said to Mark. "You were incredible," he said, shaking his head. You were terrifying, Jess." "He taught me," I said. "Now, we wait. We wait for 9 a.m. I looked at the clock. 12 a.m. "Get some sleep, Mark. The war starts in 4 hours." But how did we get to that night? How did I know for certain that he would snap? I was in my studio, the room he'd given me to explore my hobbies. It was a sterile white box with a yoga mat and an easel I'd never touched. It was really just another place to isolate me. Mark's surveillance had been fruitful. Daniel wasn't just sloppy with his money. He was sloppy with his affair. He thought I was so broken, so naive, that he didn't even need to hide it anymore. Mark had audio. He had photos. He had everything. And Valentina had confirmed the Seattle trip. It was real. A real conference, but he had also booked a first-class ticket for Taylor Reed. And he had booked a suite. Not a room, a suite, and his liquidation, the final transfers, were scheduled for the day after he returned. This was it. This was his goodbye trip. He was going to take his mistress on one last lavish vacation. Then he was going to come home, activate his crazy wife protocol, and disappear, leaving me to the wolves. His arrogance, his pathological arrogance, it was a weapon, and I just needed to aim it back at him. I knew he couldn't just leave. His ego wouldn't allow it. He had to win. He had to prove he was superior. He needed to break me first, so I decided to give him the confrontation he was secretly craving. I walked in. I was holding my phone. "Daniel." "What, Jessica?" "I'm late." He didn't look up from his machine. The hiss of the steam was loud in the silence. Who was Taylor Reed? The hissing stopped. He turned very, very slowly. His face was not angry. It was amused. A cold reptilian amusement. "What did you say?" I saw a text. "On your phone. It was open. I didn't mean to look. I'd lie. It was from someone named Taylor. About the Seattle trip. About the suite." Daniel just smiled. He sipped his espresso. He put the cup down, the clink of the ceramic on the marble counter echoing. "You went through my phone." "It was an accident," I said, my voice rising just as I'd practiced. "Daniel, who is she? Are you sleeping with her?" He walked over to me. He didn't touch me. He just loomed. "You know, Jessica," he said, his voice a soft, dangerous purr. "Your paranoia it's exhausting. It really is. I've tried to be patient. I've tried to get you help. But this insecurity, this hysteria." "I'm not hysterical," I yelled. "I saw the texts, the hotel booking. Just tell me the truth. That's it, push him. Give him the crazy wife he wants." "The truth?" he said. "The truth? You want the truth?" He laughed. A short, ugly sound. "Yes," he said. "Yes, I'm sleeping with her, and she's fantastic. She's smart. She's ambitious. She's not this." He gestured vaguely at all of me, at the broken thing he'd created. It should have hurt. 3 years ago, it would have shattered me. But the Wharton MBA, the hunter, the woman who had been auditing his $4.5 million fraud, she felt nothing. No, that's not true. She felt a cold, clinical satisfaction. The fish is on the hook. I slapped him. I'd planned that too. I needed to escalate. I needed to give him a reason to punish me. His head snapped to the side. The silence in the kitchen was absolute. He turned back. The amusement was gone. His eyes were dead, black. "You should not have done that." "Daniel," I whispered, backing away, playing the "oh God, what have I done" card. "No," he said, holding up a hand. "It's fine. It's good. I see it now. You're sick, Jessica. You're out of control, and I've been enabling you." He straightened his tie. He picked up his briefcase. "This trip to Seattle," he said, his voice calm again, that terrible pedagogical calm. I think you should come with me." "What?" "Yes, you and I will have a long talk. We'll be away from all of this. We'll reconnect. We'll fix this." The hook is set. He's not just taking his mistress. He's taking his wife. He's going to stage his final lesson away from home, away from my support system. I knew in that moment what he was planning. He was going to take me, torture me psychologically for 3 days. And then, on that trip, he was going to commit his one, final, spectacular act of cruelty. The one that would prove to the world that I was the one who was unstable. The one that would justify his abandonment. "Oh, Daniel," I cried, real tears welling up. Tears of relief. Yes, let's fix this." "Good," he said, a small, cruel smile playing on his lips. "Pack your bags. We leave on Friday." I was not in my hotel robe. I was in a dark gray, impeccably tailored suit. My hair was pulled back in a severe professional bun. My makeup was minimalist, powerful. I was the Wharton MBA. I was the portfolio manager. I was Jessica. Across the desk sat Rebecca Stein. She was exactly as Valentina had described. She looked like she could smell blood in the water from a mile away. "The simultaneous attack," she said, looking at her watch. 9:02 a.m. "I like it. It's theatrical." "It's necessary," I said. "He thinks I'm a puddle of hysteria in a hotel room right now. He's probably sleeping off his victory. He needs to be hit from all sides, all at once, before he even knows what's happening." "Okay," Rebecca said, pulling up a file on her monitor. "My team is at the courthouse. The second you give the word, we file." I looked at my clean phone, the one he didn't know about. "We are filing an emergency ex parte injunction," Rebecca said, her voice like steel. "Citing, let's see, criminal abandonment, reckless endangerment, and we are alleging, with evidence, that the defendant is a flight risk, currently in the process of liquidating all marital assets to flee the country." While Daniel was sleeping, thinking he'd finally won, my team went to war. Valentina clicked the button. "The 8-month file on his $4.5 million embezzlement?" "Sent." "Yes, Your Honor," she said. "We have the police incident report from last night. Case number..." She reads the number from the card. "Yes, I'll hold." Rebecca filed for an emergency injunction, citing the police report. The one that painted me as a terrified, abandoned victim. A black car pulls up. Daniel. He looks smug. He gets out, whistling. He walks to the front door. Mark secured the house. He was watching, waiting. Daniel puts his key in the lock. It doesn't turn. He tries again. Nothing. Mark on the phone. Yeah, the locks are changed. He's at the front door. He looks annoyed. Valentina froze his assets. "Rosales," she answers. She listens. "Yes, Agent Johnson. I'm glad you received it. Yes. I believe you'll find the routing numbers on page 4312 to be particularly interesting. Yes, he is in country. He's at his primary residence, or he's trying to be." His phone rings. We see the caller ID. "American Express." He answers, furious. "What? Mr. Asher? This is Amex Fraud Prevention. We're calling to report some unusual activity. All your corporate and personal accounts have been frozen, pending a legal inquiry." "What? What legal inquiry? Put your supervisor on." Rebecca smiles. A shark smile. "Yes, Your Honor," she says. "Thank you." She hangs up. Rebecca folds her hands on her desk. "The injunction is granted," she says. "Emergency TRO. All personal assets, all marital assets, the house, the cars, frozen. By order of the state. A hearing is set for 10 a.m. He's being served right now." Daniel Asher? What? He still didn't get it. He couldn't. His world was collapsing. His money was gone. He was locked out of his own house. But he still thought this was a domestic squabble. He still thought this was his hysterical wife throwing a tantrum. I knew who he was calling. His lawyer, the high-powered corporate bulldog who had until now been his shield. "He's angry," I said, watching a live feed from Mark's van on my own laptop. "He's arrogant. He's going to storm into that courtroom ready to tear me apart, ready to tell the judge I'm unstable." "Let him," Rebecca said, standing up, smoothing her skirt. "Let's go to court," she said. "He still thinks this is a divorce," I said, standing up, buttoning my suit jacket. "He still thinks he's in control. He has no idea what's waiting for him." The plan was no longer a theory. The machine was in motion. Every gear, every lever I had spent 8 months building was finally turning. Valentina's call 2 months prior had been the catalyst. He was liquidating. "Planning to run?" Worse, he was planning to frame me, to leave me holding the bag for his $4.5 million fraud while he disappeared with his mistress. He wasn't just planning to leave me. He was planning to dispose of me. His arrogance was his weakness. I knew he couldn't just leave. He needed a lesson. He needed to prove he was the victor. So I gave him the confrontation he wanted. I found the evidence of his affair. I played the hysterical wife. I slapped him. I gave him the justification he needed to escalate. He thought taking me on that trip, punishing me, was his idea. He thought wrong. Every step he took was a step I had anticipated. When he dragged me from that car, he wasn't a master teaching a lesson. He was an asset, recording his own confession. While he was driving home, gloating, I was in a hotel suite with the police, creating an official third-party record of his criminal abandonment. I was no longer the gaslit wife. I was a documented victim, and this morning was the simultaneous attack. While he slept, my team went to war. Rebecca filed the injunction, citing the police report. Valentina sent the 8-month embezzlement file to the U.S. attorney. Mark changed the locks. I watched on a live feed as his world collapsed in real time, his key failing, his credit cards declining, the process server handing him the injunction. He was furious. He was confused. But he still thought this was a domestic squabble. He still thought this was about us. He's on his way to the courthouse now. He's coming to tell a judge that his wife is hysterical and out of control. He still thinks he's the smartest man in the room. He still thinks he's in control. He has no idea he's not walking into a hearing. He's walking into an execution. The courtroom was bright, wood-paneled, unforgiving. There was nowhere to hide. We sat at the plaintiff's table. Me, Rebecca. That was it. I was perfectly still. My hands were folded. I was the picture of calm composure. The doors at the back of the courtroom burst open at 10:03 a.m. Daniel. He didn't walk in. He stormed in. His suit was wrinkled from his morning on the curb. His hair was a mess. His face was a mask of livid, arrogant fury. His lawyer, a bulldog named Harrison, was trotting behind him, trying to keep up, whispering frantically. He saw me. He stopped. I could see the gears grinding in his head. This was not the woman he'd left on the side of the highway. This was not the hysterical, sobbing wreck he'd heard on the phone with the police. This was the Wharton MBA. He looked confused. It was the first time in 3 years I had seen him truly, deeply confused. He walked in ready to tear me apart, ready to tell the judge I was unstable, that I was having a breakdown, that I'd locked him out of his own home. He still thought this was a divorce. He still thought he was in control. "All rise," the bailiff said. The judge entered, a woman. Judge Eleanor Davies. She had a reputation. Zero tolerance for games. She sat. She put on her glasses. She looked at the papers. "This is an emergency hearing," she said, her voice cutting through the room. "Ex parte motion for a temporary restraining order and asset freeze. Mr. Harrison, I assume you're representing the defendant, Mr. Asher?" Harrison stood up. "Yes, Your Honor, but this is an outrage. My client had no notice. This is a blatant, hysterical abuse of the system by—" "Sit down, counselor," the judge said, not even looking up. "I've read the police report from last night." I granted the TRO. This hearing is for Mr. Asher to show cause why I shouldn't make it permanent. Daniel stood up, shoving his own lawyer aside. "Your Honor, this is insane. My wife, she's unwell. She's having a paranoid episode. She locked me out of my house. She froze my accounts." "Mr. Asher, sit down," the judge snapped. Rebecca stood up, calmly. "Your Honor," Rebecca said, her voice smooth as silk. "My client, Mrs. Asher, is indeed unwell. She is the victim of systematic psychological abuse, which culminated last night in an act of criminal abandonment." "That's a lie," Daniel shouted. "She's hysterical." I gave her money! It was just an argument." "Your Honor," Rebecca continued as if he hadn't spoken, "regarding the argument, and regarding my client's hysterical state of mind." She held up a small digital audio recorder. "We have a recording of the lesson. The one Mr. Asher was teaching my client when he threw her from his car, 50 miles from home, in a storm, without her wallet." Harrison was on his feet. "Your Honor." "Objection! Illegal recording! Wiretapping!" Rebecca smiled. "One-party consent state, Your Honor. My client was a participant in the conversation, and the recording was made inside her own property, the vehicle." The judge looked at her. "Play it." Rebecca hit the button. And Daniel's voice, his cold, calm, pedagogical voice, filled the silent courtroom. "Get out, Jessica." "Daniel, we're 50 miles from home. It's pouring. I know. You've been disrespectful. You need to learn that actions have consequences. This is your lesson." We heard the sound of the door opening, the roar of the wind and rain. "Get out!" The recording stopped. The courtroom was tomb silent. The judge's face, it had hardened. She wasn't looking at Rebecca. She was looking at Daniel. A look of pure, unadulterated contempt. Daniel was white. He was breathing heavily. He was for the first time speechless. "Mr. Asher," the judge said, her voice lethally quiet. "Injunction granted. All personal and marital assets are frozen, pending a full discovery. You will surrender your passport. You will stay 500 yards away from Mrs. Asher. We are done here." His face. It was the first time I'd seen him truly confused. Defeated. Beaten. But I wasn't finished. This was never just about the abandonment. This was about everything. Daniel began to yell. A desperate, cornered animal sound. "You can't do this! This is my money. You, he pointed at me. "You bitch!" And right on cue, the courtroom doors opened. It wasn't a lawyer. It wasn't a process server. It was 2 men. And a woman. Dark suits. Professional. They didn't look at us. They looked at the judge. The lead man, Agent Johnson, held up his credentials to the bailiff. "Excuse the interruption, Your Honor," he said. "We have a federal warrant." Daniel froze. The blood, it didn't just drain from his face. It was gone. He looked like a ghost. He slowly turned. He still didn't get it. He looked confused. A federal warrant? For what? For this? This is a divorce. Agent Johnson walked right up to him. The 2 other agents flanked him. "Daniel Asher," Agent Johnson said, his voice holding no emotion at all. "You're under arrest for wire fraud, securities fraud, and embezzlement. He built his career on fraud. He thought he was a genius. He thought he was untouchable. But my Wharton MBA, it found every shell, every transfer, every single sloppy, arrogant dollar he stole." He looked at me. And in that 1 second, he knew, he finally understood. This wasn't his naive wife. This wasn't his hysterical victim. This was the portfolio manager. He wasn't just losing his wife. He was losing his life. They cuffed him. Daniel, the master of the universe, the genius, was being cuffed in the middle of a courtroom. He didn't even resist. He was in shock. I don't understand," he stammered. The accounts. They're clean." And just when I thought the poetic justice couldn't possibly be more perfect, the courtroom doors burst open again. It was Taylor, his mistress. She was not the cool, ambitious woman from Mark's photos. She was a complete and total mess. She was screaming. He lied to me!" She ran, not to Daniel, but to the federal agents. "He lied," she screamed, shoving a stack of papers into Agent Johnson's chest. I recognized the papers. They were copies of the offshore account forms, the ones from the Caymans. "He promised me," she shrieked, tears of pure terror streaming down her face. "He said it was a fail-safe. A bonus! He made me put my name on the accounts. He said it was to protect it from his crazy wife." "Oh, Daniel, you idiot. He didn't just use her as a mistress. He used her as a shield. He put the stolen money in her name. And when she saw the accounts frozen this morning, when she realized she was implicated in a $4.5 million federal fraud case, she didn't protect him. She sang. She shoved her own evidence at the federal agents. Agent Johnson looked at the papers. He looked at his partner. He looked at Daniel. And for just a second, I saw him almost smirk. "He used me," she screamed at Daniel. "You used me." He lost his wife. He lost his mistress. He lost his money. And he lost his freedom. In a single hour, that was my lesson. That was 6 months ago. I'm sitting in my office. My office? Daniel took a plea. Faced with my evidence, Valentina's forensics and his mistress's testimony, he had no choice. The genius of Wall Street. He'll be in a federal prison for the next 12 to 15 years. Taylor, she got a lighter sentence in exchange for her testimony. And me, I was a whistleblower. The SEC's case against Daniel's fund was one of the fastest they'd ever closed. The whistleblower reward for recovering the $4.5 million, it was substantial, $1.5 million. He tried to dismantle me, but he forgot who I was. He tried to weaponize my intellect against me, to turn it into a prison of self-doubt. But he only made it sharper. He only made it colder. I used that $1.5 million to build my real legacy. The Aegis Foundation. Aegis, the shield. Now I use financial forensics and legal aid to help other women. Women who are trapped. Women who are being gaslit by men who control the money. Women who are being told they're crazy when they're just right. I'm a portfolio manager again, but I don't manage money. I manage justice. I build fortresses for them. It's strange. He left me in the rain, on the side of a highway to teach me a lesson. To break me. But I wasn't broken. I was cleansed. He left me in the rain, but I built an ark. He left her in the rain, but she built an ark. What an incredible story of methodical, precise justice. Thank you so much for sticking with us through that entire journey. If you found this story as satisfying as I did, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And I have to ask, what was the single most satisfying moment for you? Was it the audio of the lesson being played in court? Was it the mistress, Taylor, showing up in a panic? Or was it the final moment, when Daniel realized he'd been arrested for fraud, not a domestic dispute? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. We release stories just like this, tales of justice, suspense, and incredible strategy, every single week. If you don't want to miss the next one, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. The best way to support the channel is simply by sharing this video with someone else who would love it. Until the next story, stay sharp.